Crypto bank Silvergate shutting down.
There's definitely, I think, a 95-100% probability that there's some type of forced merger bailout in the next, say 30 to 60 days. But
there's counterparty risk once these things start. This is a classic bank run.
Alright guys, so what would you do if you went to your bank and you're unable to withdraw any money, and worse off, your accounts are frozen?
What we know now is Wall Street can bring down Main Street. And frankly, I'm going to tell you, it's a little scary.
So we've seen bank runs since 2008, and it all started with Iceland. I mean, there were many before that, but Iceland was one that was memorable. We also saw bank runs in Myanmar recently in 2021 when there was a military coup. But you know what? All of that doesn't really affect us because most of us here that are probably watching this channel live in the West. So that really doesn't affect us back at home until recently. But you know what? That doesn't really affect us living in the West because the last time we've seen a major bank run was during the Great Depression in the 1930s. So back when I was 16, that was the first time I was able to work, and I remember that like yesterday because I did some really back-breaking labor, and what my mom told me to do for the first time was to start a bank account, and I did, and that was how they were paying me, right? Because they were doing direct deposit. My mom told me that, you know what, saving your money in a bank account, you're gonna get something like 2% interest, so you're earning money on top of your money, and it's safer than keeping your money under your bed, which I was planning on doing. But as I aged, as I grew up, boy, did I realize that they were wrong. Because with banks, they're actually one click away from freezing your bank account, freezing your access to your money. And like what's happening now, like what happened in Myanmar, in case of a bankruptcy or a coup, you're likely not going to get your money back.
So I'm making this video on March 10th, and within this last week, we have seen 2 US commercial banks literally fail. It seems that the bank runs and the bankruptcies that were happening to banks overseas in other less developed countries are now happening back home in the US. The latest victim is Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB. Now these guys have customers such as Sequoia Capital and Anderson Hort's A16Z. Both of them are huge institutional investors that have dabbled in crypto firms. And this is this part of the story where banks really do not have your back. They really care all about themselves, because SVB was trying to sell stock at the same day that Silvergate was going under because they themselves were running out of liquidity. So what the CEO of SVB wanted to do was he wanted to sell stock to the public to raise liquidity for the bank. And to me, what that sounds like, it sounds like the bank wanted to use the public as a bailout for their failing business. And we're lucky that that didn't happen because we don't want our retail customers to be holding the bag. The latest news from SVB's operation is that they've been taken over by the government. They've been taken over by FDIC, which comes in when a bank fails in order to try to make the customers of that failing bank whole. Aside from SVB, Silvergate is also now winding down their business and they're liquidating everything. The good thing from this is that apparently their customers is going to get full repayment for all of their deposits. So depositors are going to get made whole. Senators like Elizabeth Warren was all over Silvergate criticizing them for their risky behavior with crypto. And I swear, all these politicians are up there making conjectures after the fact when they could have done something for the customers before the fact. Only after Silvergate went under do these senators like Warren come out and say I told you so, when they really could have done something before Silvergate went bust, and that would have actually protected a lot more people and businesses. That's very heroic of you, Ms. Warren. Now the last bank I want to talk about is actually not a US bank, but they're one of the biggest banks in the world. And a lot of their wealthy customers are leaving in droves, and that is Credit Suisse. And these guys have been around for a while. They started their company in 1856 and they opened its New York office in 1870. So they've been around for more than 100 years. Over the decades, they grew their business by mergers and acquisition, and by 2006, it was operating globally in private banking, investment banking, and asset management. But the thing is, It all happened in the last year. In the last year, Credit Suisse was involved in multiple scandals, which brings us to question whether Credit Suisse is liquid. Because in this last year, in 2021 to 2022, they lost $7.7 billion in Greensmill Capital and Archegos investments. They're also the first major domestic bank to be charged with a criminal conviction for laundering money for drug traffickers. And not only that, in that same month, there was a leak that Credit Suisse service people had accounts with Credit Suisse who were involved in human and drug trafficking and torture. Lastly, Credit Suisse also requested hedge funds and investors to destroy certain documents relating to Russian oligarchs and their loans, which means that it sounds like Credit Suisse isn't honoring the sanctions that basically every single country have placed on Russia because of the invasion of Ukraine. Now, like Silicon Valley Bank, they have also claimed that they have a strong capital base and a strong liquidity position. And you know what? That's also the same thing that Sam Bankman-Fried said before FTX and Alameda went bankrupt.
So to recap, these guys, Credit Suisse, they're one of the world's largest investment banks. They have their finger in everything. So that means that whatever bank you bank with, Credit Suisse might likely have their finger in that too. So if they go down, then your bank will be affected and you will be affected. So I guess the point of this video is that no matter what your parents say, banks aren't safe, especially now that the bank runs and bankruptcy has come home to the US and the West. And the best thing that you can do actually is to prepare. And one option to prepare is buying Bitcoin and crypto. And in this channel, we're going to explore other ways you can prepare for potential future bank runs. It's not a matter of if it'll happen, it's when it'll happen. And if you want to stay on top of the game, then you can easily do so by smashing the like and subscribe button. And with that said, guys, continue working, continue building, continue inspiring. I'll see you next time.